You know that moment, the one that you stare at a decision and your brain throws a dozen reasons to say no, but your gut's quietly yelling, just do it. I've been there more times than I can count, wondering if I'm crazy for leaving the familiar and diving into something new. You know, the grass always looks greener to me. And today I want to talk about a mindset that saved me from overthinking myself into paralysis. I'm calling it zero regret decision. And no, it's not about magically making a perfect decision, it's about making peace with the fact that there's no such thing and still moving forward anyway. My name is Catherine, and this is Better Now Than Never. Midlife reinvention, financial clarity, and my slightly messy plan to retire early on my terms. So, what exactly is zero regret decision? It's not some flawless guaranteed win, it's far from it. It's the choice you make when you say, I'm done waiting for certainty, I'm choosing this path, right or wrong. Because honestly, regret usually comes from hesitation, from the endless what ifs and maybes. Regret isn't about making mistakes, it's about never making a move. And you definitely won't if you definitely don't. I've learnt that the hard way, trying to plan for every little detail before I've even started. That level of perfection is a myth. So instead of, chasing the perfect, zero regrets means trusting that once you decide, you commit fully, learn from it, and keep walking. 12 years ago, after living in the UK for 13 years, I returned to Australia with my husband in tow. And if you've ever moved countries, then you'll know how much effort it takes to start life again. I don't think there's a bigger decision that you can make than deciding on where you live, to give up everything that you have in the moment, and trundle halfway across the world, away from your friends, leaving your job, your lifestyle, your possessions, because you think the grass is greener over there. Well, it's a lot. And trust me, there are some stinging wasps in that grass. So this wasn't the first time that I moved. I moved from Australia to London. Then I moved to Manchester. Then I moved to Leeds, and then eventually back to Australia. And we've lived a few places in Australia since then, over the last 25 years. But I've made all of those decisions for all sorts of different reasons, but mainly because I could. And because, yeah, the grass always looked greener on the other side. Now, sometimes that grass is downright brown, but when you make a decision, you just have to make it work. You don't have an option. Just like starting this channel with no script, no fancy setup, zero subscribers. And but I just knew it was time to share my story, my journey, and make it part of my retirement plan. I didn't care about how it would look or if anybody would watch. So yeah, I committed, and here we are. Well, it's a bit of a lie, because I did not choose to show my face, but that's an explanation for another episode. Even with money decisions like creating my flex fund, it wasn't perfectly calculated. It was a choice to give myself a cushion and peace of mind, not a guarantee against every unexpected bill. None of these decisions were flawless. Some felt like leaps into the fog, but regret? No, I'm not going to do that. So, how do you make these decisions when everything feels fuzzy? So, for me, it's a blend of a gut feeling, some basic checks, and some value alignment. So, realistically, what I do is I start with the pros and then I sleep on it. And then I go to the cons and then I sleep on it. And then I ask myself, does this align with who I want to be? Does it get me closer to reaching my goals? Most importantly, will I regret not doing it? And I look for some practical red flags. I'm not selling my house tomorrow, although in midlife, sometimes I don't know how we miss red flags. And eventually I tune into that quieter inner voice that says, this is it. It's not always loud, it's not always clear, but it's always there if you listen. And if you don't feel it yet, that's okay too. Sometimes zero regrets means just starting, even with a little bit of fear. Because fear and clarity often share the same line, and the walking of that line is the journey. At the moment, I'm starting into my big next one, and it's retirement. And that's where we are. I am starting this journey. The pre-planning is the journey. And I am retiring. I'm telling people that I'm retiring. I'm putting my plans into action, one small step at a time. So if you're sitting there stuck in a swirl of what if I'm wrong, or maybe I should wait longer, or remember this, you don't have to have it all figured out. You can make a decision that feels right enough and still course correct later. Trust me, those corrections will happen. But if you get to choose how to handle them, you'll get to turn those issues into positives. So zero regrets is freedom. Freedom from the paralysis of overthinking and fear, and freedom from being wrong. It's about choosing action and trusting yourself to whatever comes next. It's about being old and sitting in that rocking chair and not saying I could have or I should have. It's about saying I did and I loved every second of it, even the shitty bits. So I'd love to hear about your zero regret moments, the decisions that make you feel alive and scared and totally sure all at once. So if you'd like to share, comment below, hit the subscribe, and let's talk about it. You know, because money, midlife, making it better now is all about better now than ever.